All right, strap yourselves in because this deep dive is going to take us right to the heart of Bangladesh.
Ooh, sounds intense.
Oh, it is. We're going to try to unpack the whole political and social scene over there, and we've got a pretty surprising source to help us with that.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Get this, a speech from Donald Trump, US president, no less. And it's causing a real stir in Bangladesh.
Wow, that's not your typical headline. What's got everyone so riled up?
Well, for starters, he goes full Bengali in the speech, like directly addressing the Bangladeshi people.
Bold move.
Yeah, not exactly standard diplomatic language, right?
No, not really.
But here's where things get really interesting.
Okay, lay it on me.
He goes after this concept of Chetona.
Ah, Chetona.
And this is where I need your expertise, because it seems like this word is packed with meaning.
Yeah, Chetona is a loaded term.
Yeah.
It's often translated as consciousness or spirit, but it goes much deeper than that, especially in Bangladesh.
How so?
It's like fundamentally tied to their national identity.
Yeah.
You know, their whole origin story, their fight for independence.
Oh, so like their liberation war back in 71.
Exactly. Think of it as the embodiment of their struggle, their resilience, their national pride, you know, all that good stuff.
Wow, okay, so this isn't just some abstract idea. It's deeply embedded in their history and their psyche.
Absolutely.
So I guess I can see why people would be sensitive about it.
For sure.
But Trump seems to have a real problem with it. What's his beef with Chetona?
Well, his argument is that this constant focus on Chetona, you know, this glorious past, it's become a political tool,
Okay, I can see how that could happen.
like a way to distract from real issues and avoid making progress.
So he's basically saying they're stuck in the past.
Yeah, essentially.
But he didn't just say it nicely, did he?
No, he definitely didn't mince words. He even called it a tool of looting, a way to pacify people.
Ugh. All right, that's pretty harsh.
Yeah, very strong words.
I mean, I'm trying to imagine any other world leader coming out and saying those kinds of things about another country's core values.
Yeah, it's definitely out there.
So what's the reaction been like in Bangladesh? Are people outraged?
Well, that's the fascinating part. While there are definitely some who are critical, there's also this surprisingly large chunk of the population that's actually nodding along with Trump.
Wait, hold on. You're telling me people in Bangladesh, a country that has its own complicated history with the US, are siding with Donald Trump?
Yeah, it's pretty wild, right?
I did not see that coming. Who are these people?
A lot of it seems to be coming from younger generations.
Makes sense. They probably don't have the same strong connection to the events of 71.
Right, and then there's also the Social Samaj, which is basically their civil society.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that term.
It's kind of a hard one to translate directly. Think of it as intellectuals, academics, artists, activists, you know, the thinkers and influencers.
Okay, got it. So they're echoing Trump's sentiments.
Yeah, and their voices carry a lot of weight in Bangladesh. So when they start saying, hey, maybe Trump has a point here, people listen.
So it's not just a bunch of random people on Twitter. It's coming from a respected part of their society.
Exactly.
This is getting more interesting by the minute, but what exactly are they saying? What issues are they worried about?
Well, a lot of them point to the economic relationship with India.
Oh, right. Like Trump brought up those examples about how Bangladesh is basically giving India free reign over its ports while their own people are stuck with traffic jams and bad roads.
Exactly. He really hammered that point home.
Yeah, and I can see how that would resonate with people, especially if they feel like their own country isn't benefiting from the deal.
Right, like they're being taken advantage of.
Okay, so there's this sense that maybe focusing so much on Chetona, on national pride and unity, is actually preventing them from standing up for themselves in these economic negotiations.
Here's the argument.
Wow, this is getting really deep.
It is. We're talking about national identity, economic anxieties, international relations. It's a lot to unpack.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So where do we even go from here?
Well, then the next step is to dig deeper into these practical implications. If Bangladesh really were to take Trump's message to heart, what concrete changes could we see? What would this mean for their policies, their infrastructure, their whole approach to the future?
Okay, yeah, that's a great place to start. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of what a Chetona-free Bangladesh might actually look like.
It's good to me.
All right, so we've got this idea that Chetona, this powerful sense of national consciousness, is being questioned in Bangladesh, even by some folks who are finding themselves agreeing with some of Trump's points. But what does that actually look like, in real life? What kind of changes are people actually talking about?
Well, one of the biggest areas where we might see some shifts is in Bangladesh's economic policies, especially when it comes to how they deal with India. Trump didn't hold back. He basically said Bangladesh has got to be tougher in its trade agreements.
Yeah, he used that example about the ports, right? Like, hey, you're giving India all this access, but what's in it for you? Which is a pretty bold statement to make, considering the history between those two countries. They're not just neighbors, they've got a lot of shared history.
Oh, absolutely. Remember, India was a huge supporter of Bangladesh's independence movement back in 71.
Yeah.
So there's this deep sense of gratitude, and, they share a lot culturally. But, the economic realities are different now. There's a growing feeling in Bangladesh that this historical bond shouldn't mean they have to sacrifice their own economic interests.
So it's not about cutting ties with India completely, but more about reassessing the relationship. Like taking a more practical approach, not so tied to the emotional weight of Chetona.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. They're looking for something more balanced, a relationship where both sides benefit fairly. And this shift in thinking isn't limited to just trade deals.
Oh, okay, I see. So what other areas are people looking to change?
Infrastructure is another big one. Trump was pretty critical of how Bangladesh's infrastructure compares to India's. He pointed out the difference in the quality of roads and transportation systems. He even joked about wanting to direct traffic himself if he was in charge over there.
Huh. I can just picture that. I'm not sure how well that would go over in Dhaka.
All right, but his point is pretty clear. He's basically saying that the state of a country's infrastructure tells you a lot about their priorities, their commitment to progress.
Okay. Yeah, I get it. It's like if you're not investing in your infrastructure, you're not really serious about moving forward.
Exactly. And for a country like Bangladesh, which is developing so quickly, having a strong infrastructure is crucial. It attracts investment from other countries, it creates jobs and opportunities, and it makes life better for everyone who lives there. This is something that the Social Samaj is really pushing for, real, tangible improvements that make a difference in their day-to-day lives.
So we've got potential changes in economic policy, a push for better infrastructure. What else is on the table? It seems like there's a pretty big reevaluation of national priorities happening.
And there's one more area, though it's a bit more sensitive, that Trump kind of touched on in his speech. Political reform. He hinted that Bangladesh's political landscape, with its focus on historical figures in these long-standing political families, might be holding the country back.
Yeah, that's stepping into some pretty tricky territory. Every country has its own way of doing politics, and suggesting that another country needs to change its system, well, that's going to ruffle some feathers.
Oh, for sure. But again, what's interesting is that Trump isn't the only one saying these things. There's a growing sentiment within Bangladesh itself, especially among the younger generation, that they want a more transparent and accountable government, one that's less concerned with the past and more focused on dealing with the challenges of today.
So Trump's speech, as controversial as it is, has become this kind of unexpected catalyst. Like he started these conversations about economic policy, infrastructure, even political reform. It's almost like he's thrown this big rock in the pond and we're seeing all the ripples spreading out.
I like that. That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And it's way too early to say what the long-term impact of all this will be. There's so many factors involved, both inside Bangladesh and internationally.
But it's safe to say things are changing, right? This isn't just a flash in the pan, it's sparked a real debate about Bangladesh's future.
Exactly. And this brings us to a really important point. We've talked a lot about Trump's point of view, his critique of Chetona and all that. But what about the people of Bangladesh themselves? We need to hear from them, What do they think about all of this?
You're right. It's easy to get caught up in all the political drama and the big names. But at the end of the day, this is really about the people living in Bangladesh and what the future holds for them. What are they hoping for? What are their concerns? What kind of country do they want to live in?
And that's what makes this whole thing so interesting. You see, Chetona isn't just one thing. It means different things to different people. For some, it's a source of strength and unity, a reminder of what they've survived as a nation.
Yeah, I can see that. It's like a common history that brings them together, a source of pride.
Exactly. But then for others, especially those who feel like they're not benefiting from how things are now, Chetona can feel like a weight, a constant pressure to live up to this idealized past that they may not even connect with.
So it's like this double-edged sword, powerful but also potentially restrictive.
That's it. And I think that's what makes this whole conversation so fascinating. It's forcing Bangladeshis to really think about their national identity, to ask themselves, what does Chetona actually mean for us today? Is it moving us forward or holding us back?
And those are tough questions to answer. It's not just about money or roads, it's about who they are as a nation.
Exactly. And it's not just happening in government or in the news either. It's happening in everyday life, in schools, in homes, on social media. It's become this nationwide conversation about what it means to be Bangladeshi.
It's wild to think that a speech from Donald Trump, of all people, could spark such deep self-reflection in another country.
Yeah, it really shows you the power of hearing a different viewpoint, right? Sometimes it takes someone from outside to hold up a mirror and help you see yourself in a new way.
And that's what we've been trying to do in this deep dive, to give you a peek into this complex and ever-changing situation, to get you curious about Bangladesh and what lies ahead for them.
We've explored Chetona, this incredibly influential force in Bangladeshi society. We've looked at Trump's controversial take on it and the surprising reactions it's gotten. And we've gone into the potential impacts this could have on Bangladesh's economy, infrastructure, and even their political system.
But like always, the biggest takeaway here is this. Keep learning, keep asking questions, keep digging deeper.
Yeah, we encourage you to find different voices and perspectives on Bangladesh. Learn more about their history, their culture, their people. It's a fascinating country with so much to offer.
Because when you get down to it, this isn't just about one country or one speech. It's about that universal human drive to improve, to create a better future. And realizing that sometimes the most surprising voices can challenge our assumptions and make us think in new ways.
So we'll leave you with this. What does Chetona mean to you in your own life, in your own community, in your own country? Is it a force for good, a tool for manipulation, or something in between? Think about it.
Keep those questions in mind, and until next time, keep on exploring.